So hi everybody, welcome to another LTAD chat, an LTAD chat. I'm Rick Howard along with Tony Marino. Joe Eisenman is not with us today, but he's here with us in spirit, certainly as we welcome today's guest, Wayne Moss of the National Council of Youth Sports, among other enterprises he's involved with. So Wayne, thank you so much for joining us. And if you could just tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and why we're here today.
Absolutely. So thank you, first of all, for having me. So again, I'm Wayne Moss. I'm the executive director with the National Council of Youth Sports. We are a member organization supporting the youth sports space. Our membership represents some 60 million young people registered in youth sports, so that's a duplicated number. There are folks that are in the national community-based organization side, like Pop Warner and AAU, localized mom and pop kind of groups, some national governing bodies like USA Synchronized Swimming and, Park and Rec and national destination marketing organizations. And so we've got a variety of groups that we represent and super excited to be joining you, particularly around this conversation about long-term athletic development.
Very cool. All right, so we'll start off with our first question. We're just kind of curious, what was your pathway that led you to actually being the executive director of the NCYS? How did all that come to be?
Man, that makes me think about like a Mary Tyler Moore episode. You're gonna date me now, like Ted Baxter. It all started at a small radio station in Fresno. No, so let's see. So I'm a couple years into my tenure here at the National Council. I spent 16 years with the Boys and Girls Clubs of America, where I led the development of programs, sports and fitness programs for 4,300 clubs around the country on military installations abroad. It served as a recreation director with the city of Cleveland and DeKalb County Parks and Rec. That's here in Georgia, in the city of Atlanta. And what seemed like another lifetime, I spent some time with the Cleveland Browns, the real Cleveland Browns, who are in Baltimore right now,
Right.
along with the Detroit Lions. And so what literally brought me to this place at this time, is this notion around how we might be able to provide support and really, transformation, if you will, to the youth sports ecosystem. That's the thing that really has gotten me excited. The enormous opportunity that it is. We do so many great things. When I say that collective we in the youth sports space, we do so many great things individually. And so one of the things that we at the National Council of Youth Sports are interested in is how we begin to level up, the youth sports sector in a variety of ways, primarily in safety and quality, getting to outcomes and then being an advocate for all youth sport organizations.
Thanks, Wayne. The National Council of Youth Sport has developed this strategic framework. You've created this framework. Can you give us a little bit of background and purpose behind this strategic framework?
Yeah, absolutely. So a year ago, or a little less than a year ago, we all were in the throes of COVID. There's a light at the end of the tunnel with that now. And we really wanted to get clear about our purpose, our direction, and our lane, our role in the youth sport space. And so, there have been lots of conversation with a number of our stakeholders about that direction. And we took on really taking a look at the strategic approach that we wanted to take. And so, out of that, really provided some clarity for us. First and foremost, we started thinking about our mission, our vision, and then the particular strategic efforts And so, we really got clear that for us, we do want to be the catalyst for helping to unite and lead our communities around, this notion that sport has the power of good. And, from a mission perspective, and then, as we think about the specific strategic areas, again, I mentioned, this issue of safety and, thinking about safety, not just from a physical perspective, but, also from a social and emotional perspective, looking at quality and what constitutes a quality program. Again, this notion of building organizational capacity for youth sport organizations, and then finally, this notion of ensuring that we all are advocates. So that's really how that came about, getting pretty laser focused, and then there are a number of tactics and goals that are related to each of those areas.
Fantastic.
Yep, that makes a lot of sense. Tony and I are very excited, as you know, about the framework overall as it relates back to what we're doing in long-term athletic development, and using that really as a vehicle for physically literate culture of using sports as that vehicle, and then leading to health and well-being. And we noticed that it's fantastic within the framework. It supports sports-based youth development and health and well-being. So we're kind of wondering, what do those terms mean to you and to the organization, and how are you going to know if you're effective in helping sports-based youth development and improving health and well-being? How do you know those measures are happening?
So that is the $5 million question. So first of all, let me get to your question about well-being and health. When I think about well-being and I think about health, well-being, I think about from that perspective of, being healthy and prosperous, a state, if you will, of being healthy and prosperous. When I think about health, the World Health Organization definition, always pops up for me, and that is that state of complete physical, mental, and physical social well-being, and not merely the absence of illness or infirmity. And so, I think about those things as, I think about those particular terms. Specific to our effectiveness, let's see, that's a bit of a complicated question, but let me see if I can unpack it and kind of bottom line it. So we have developed our theory of change. And, we've taken a look at, that strategic framework. We've looked at the specific goals for each of those areas. And then we're going to be mapping against, how successful, we are. So for example, this year in our safety area, we're looking at training 10,000 coaches. Over the course of the next 4 years or so, we're looking at 1 million individuals that, we're looking to have trained, whether they're coaches or administrators or parents, and looking to ensure that there's training inside of, that coach piece, but also looking at some other things like ensuring that we're doing background screenings and, those kind of things, so that there's a sense that organizations are at the end of the day doing those kind of things that lead to safety.
Great. Wayne, you've talked about safety, both physical, emotional, behavioral, as being critical to the strategic framework. And we know that another one of your goals is associated with physical preparation or physical conditioning. In your understanding of long-term athletic development, how does the LTAD framework support, how do you feel these LTAD frameworks support these goals as it relates to safety and physical preparation or physical conditioning, if you will?
Well, quite frankly, I think it's foundational. I mean, I think that, this issue gets to, there are two things that are top of mind. First and foremost, I just think that it's foundational to helping all young people, become comfortable in their bodies. And, really able to move appropriately. And that sets the stage for me that, all young people should be physically active and engaged in a way that ultimately leads to physical activity for life. Finding things that we all love, appreciate, and can participate in over the course of time. It's healthy from an individual perspective, but it also gets to, some of the challenges that we have as a society in terms of, the cost of healthcare and the impact that that is on our society, the drain that it is. So that's one piece. And then the second piece is really, as we think about how young people progress, if you will, through their own physical development, I think it's important for all of us in this space to begin to understand what are those stages of physical development in a way that makes sense so that we can support young people as we're designing programs. The program design is appropriate to the age and stage and what it is that we're looking to get from, that particular stage such that they can, those young people can be competent, gain confidence and, really continue to, desire to participate in play. So it's foundational. And to me, it's at the source of our long-term success.
Yeah, and I think all three of us can agree that it's easy to see things in terms of a model or a framework, some structure, but you alluded to this earlier, that $5 million question. How do we make it happen? How do we implement things? And another one of the goals associated with the strategic framework is to get organizations to buy in. And you've set this target number of 100 by December 31st, 2023. What do you, and I know you may or may not have an answer for this, but I just would like to get your perspective. Like, how do we get buy-in from, especially as a leader in the National Council of Youth Sports, how do we do this? What's your thoughts on how do we get buy-in from organizations?
Yeah, so I mean, for me, it comes back to initially what are the goals that we're attempting to get to, and we're beginning to set the stage for how we talk about our work from an outcomes, perspective. And so, if in fact we believe that youth sports uh, provides foundational and fundamental outcomes for young people from a physical, social, emotional, cognitive perspective. And if those outcomes are derived based on being intentional in our approach, that's the first thing that I think that we need to agree upon. So we'll be beginning to lead with that. And we're in the process now of developing what we're calling our blueprint for success. So you'll be hearing about this soon, which is a very intentional approach to the work of youth sport. So first and foremost, it is really about agreeing there, and then it's about how do we take a look at the work inside of our ecosystem. And I think that depending on where you sit, you've got a different opinion about things. If you're in the community, if you're in the community-based space like a recreation center, recreation department, your whole perspective is let's keep kids active. If you're in the sports-based arena, your perspective is, the sport itself isn't that important. It's the youth development principles that we're attempting to get to. If you're in the pay for play space, you're thinking, hey, I'm ready to get young people prepared for being on the varsity team or participating at the collegiate level, or maybe you can make it to the league. When in fact, all of those things are valid. And so part of how we'll begin to think about this is what are the specific pathways for each of these areas. But foundationally, physical literacy is about what's important, ensuring that all young people are developing those fundamental movement skills and that young people are, moving through these stages in a, in an appropriate way. So there's no easy answer to your question in terms of how we get there. But I think part of it is simply agreeing on one, what are the outcomes? And then secondly, what are some of the paths that we all are participating in that we can continue to play in depending on where we are, that ultimately, create the stage for all of us and our young people in particular to be successful.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, that makes great sense too, Wayne. So I like what you talk about with intentionality, because the research clearly tells us that sports has the ability to do all this for our young people, but it doesn't always. So sometimes the goals and objectives of those in the space don't match the goals and objective for sports-based youth development. So really appreciate your words that you're focusing in that particular direction. And as we keep going back to our LTAD framework and what we look at, and within the position statement from the NSCA, the fifth pillar was that the health and well-being of the child is the central tenet of all LTAD programs and everything that we do. So it's very exciting to see the health and well-being being featured here too as a critical component. So here in the US, we've adopted what we call the American Development Model, which kind of came from USA Hockey. They
Mhm.
kind of looked at the Canadian model and what was going on with that, and so modified that slightly. They've just updated their model. Canada's updated their model 2 or 3 times now. So looking at the American development model as the implementation model, so to speak, of LTAD here in the US, having 100 organizations adopt it, what are they going to adopt? What are we going to ask those organizations to do as it relates to physical literacy, LTAD, and the American development model as our implementation model?
Yeah, I mean, so we'll be working with folks like you all in terms of, the pillars of, what that means specifically. At the end of the day, what we're interested in doing is having folks, as we think about, the ADM models, LTAD, what we're interested in doing is that organizations are saying, yes, we agree with that approach and that makes sense. And I would say that for many, depending on what space you're in, if you're in the NGB world, the ADM models are, sort of the water that you swim in. It's not anything that's unusual for many of the folks that you all are participating with. I mean, again, it's the work that you all are engaged in. But if you go up the street from me or from you and you find organizations that, are running programs, when you start talking about, LTAD or ADM, they're going to look at you like you got 3 eyes.
Mhm.
They have no earthly idea of what that means. And so part of what we want to do is, particularly from a community-based perspective, we want to begin working with organizations in a way like you all, working with you all in a way that we begin to outline what this means specific, both from a practical perspective, a program design perspective, an implementation perspective, and then have organizations say, oh yeah, that makes sense. And so again, if we were to use hockey as an example, there may be, the local community that's playing baseball or tennis or whatever it may be. Small sided games may be something that they take on as a part of, their program design instead of having, 6-year-olds playing, on a baseball field that has 300, fences that adults can only get to. They wouldn't have young people, playing on dimensions like that.
So it'll be more than lip service then, that they'll have to show some action items of what they're going to do in their adaptation of and an adoption of ADM. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, so we're not interested in being the the ADM police or anything
Right.
like that.
Mhm.
I mean, for us, it really is about education and helping folks to understand what is from a development perspective, what's appropriate. So, we think about youth development as being appropriate. Stages of athletic development are clearly as appropriate as well. So we want to be in that space where we're helping moms and dads and youth sport organizations to understand what that is. So again, for you all and quite frankly, a lot of your audience, you've got a sense of that. But if I look at the average parent, the average parent only has, hey, did this team win the U9 championship? Or did they go to Florida to play in some tournament as like some litmus test to determine whether it's a quality program? When in fact, the kinds of things that we're talking about should be the kind of things that parents and organizations should be looking at in terms of their design and implementation.
Great
Right.
point. Yeah.
That's great. When we talk about the things earlier, Joe Eisenman, Rick, and myself, and what a great opportunity this is to speak to an individual like yourself, because Wayne Moss, you're like a spark that can start a wildfire. I understand that you don't want to embrace this ADM police role, and I don't think anybody's expecting you to do that, but you are spot on when you say that people will look at you like you have three eyes when you talk about LTAD or ADM. Vast majority of people do not know or what that acronym stands for or what it represents as a framework. And this is why you're so important, because you represent an organization such as the National Council of Youth Sport that embraces its principles. And those principles that do enable a physically literate culture. These are the things that we speak to about the issues in youth sport and specifically and culture in general. And I think an organization like yourself and a figurehead like yourself are so vital, so important to the movement in terms of really creating that positive youth sport culture. How can youth serving sport organizations get involved or join the National Council of Youth Sports?
Oh, well, that's an easy one. So again, organizations that are easy, can simply go to our website, ncys.org. There's an opportunity to join as a member. We certainly welcome that. One of the things that we're looking to do is to provide additional support to youth sport organizations in a way that they can become more effective so that they can do what they do, which is what they do best, which is serve young people. So that's the easy way to to get involved. I do want to say one thing just to piggyback on something that you're sharing. So I want to give a shout out to Tom Ferry and the folks from the Aspen Institute. It was probably about 10 years ago now, I think, that physical literacy first crossed my radar, through one of their initial meetings, and they had folks from Canada in, and there was the initial, I think, conversation about physical literacy within the U.S. and all the work that was starting to take place on the USOPC side, and of course hockey has been very instrumental, and a number of other groups have joined in. But again, it's an idea whose time has come, and I think as all of us in this space begin to get clear about what it is, how it works, why it makes sense, I think to that extent, we're going to find many organizations beginning to embrace it.
Yeah, I would hope so. It's for the past, I know for Joe, Rick, and myself, it's been this dogged pursuit to try to get people to embrace the framework, understand it, understand the concept of physical literacy, and not just embrace and understand it, but it's those next steps. How do we get it down to the grassroots level? And again, I can't thank you enough. That's why your organization is so important, because you are that connect between principle and practice.
And one other thing that I'll say to you, Tony, is again, I spent 16 years with the Boys and Girls Clubs of America. And the thing that I learned and, during my time there is, there's that area where, there's interest that, folks might have in doing something, but, one, you got to meet people where they are. But secondly, you've got to provide them with the tools and resources then to be able to translate an idea and make it easy and real for them. And that's the place that that we will be getting to. We're not there today. We've not gotten to the point where we've taken on this issue of ADM publicly. Quite frankly, it will be a part of a sequential process for us. But again, you got to provide organizations with the tools to make it easy. So that, I think, is one of the answers to your question about how do we do this. We got to make it easy for folks, to be able to adopt. And then we've got to celebrate those organizations that do adopt. We've got to celebrate, acknowledge them, celebrate them in a way that, others can see. And then it does become like a wildfire. So, hey, I'm glad you guys have been in the trenches fighting day after day. And, there are folks like us who want to join with you all in making that happen.
Great, thank you, 100%.
Yep, cool. That kind of leads into another thought. So for organizations and people who are in the trenches, like Tony, Joe, and I have been, and we're doing the work for LTAD and ADM. How do we align ourselves or work more closely with you and your organization as we move forward? What's that going to look like?
I think that looks like a variety of things. So, for example, you all are expert in this particular area. You're subject matter experts. So one of the things that we are interested in doing and have plans to do, we're working through this now, is the development of a variety of trainings that will be sequential. And think of it, much in the same way that if you were at a university, so we'll so athletic, ADM will be a part of that. Stages of youth development will be a piece of that. And so, I'll be looking forward to working with folks like you all in the development of that content. And we'll be looking forward to working with you all in the development of collateral material, as you all are expert in this area, so that we can then take what you all know and help others in that education and then implementation, perspective, if you will. And so I would say, just continue to, think about how you all can support folks like us, but also, folks in, in the youth sports space in general.
So that's an excellent plan. So you're actually figured out how to get the resources to the people that need them the most.
Absolutely.
That's really cool. That's great.
Yeah, I think about in some ways, our guy from Apple, Mac Computers. What's his name? Joe Jobs.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. So I think about a guy like Jobs, the development of product that in some ways he developed products that people didn't even realize that they needed, right? But we cannot even imagine not having our iPhone or whatever our version of that is, or our Apple Watch or whatever that version is, that brought so much value to our lives in a way that we didn't realize. I believe that as we think about long-term athletic development and ADM models, I fundamentally believe it to be the same thing, that over the course of time, when we look back, when we think about the impact that will have on young people, their ability to move through various stages, their ability to be engaged in sport. And one thing that I want to come back to that I didn't make a point about earlier, the issue of safety. Part of what happens with young people is injury because of operating outside of those principles that make a difference in terms of their development. And so as we look back on this, I think it'll be the same kind of thing that as we look back on the use of the iPhone and the iPad and so forth, it's like, man, how did we ever live without this? So I'm
Yeah.
glad you all are the OGs in this arena. And believe me, this will be something that we'll look back on and say, wow, I can't believe we didn't embrace this much earlier.
Right. Well,
Well,
years
can't
from
happen
now,
without a spark like Wayne Moss.
yeah, there you go.
Well, thank you.
Tony, you want to take the next? Bring us-
Sure. So what is your, long-term personal vision as it relates to youth sport? I know we kind of alluded it to a little bit during this conversation, but are you optimistic about youth sport, Wayne? I know it's going to be a little bit of work, but what's your overall final personal vision as it relates to youth sport?
I'm bullish on youth sport. If youth sport was a stock, I'd be buying right now. And like we're in an interesting time. I think we're still in COVID. There are folks that that want to get back to normalcy, whatever that is, and I think that for a lot of us in this arena, there won't be going back to what is normal. There'll be some elements of that. What's foundational in terms of young people playing in their communities. We'll get back to that. But I also think that there is a yearning for something in addition to. And in some cases, I think folks are yearning for that and they're not even sure what they're yearning for. They just know this isn't quite it. There's a yearning for leveling of the playing field so that young people who don't have means are able to participate. So there's not a chasm between the haves and the have-nots. There's a yearning for sports as a means of youth development. So I am bullish on the future of youth sport. And at the end of the day, what I see is a few things. I see the youth sport sector coming together in ways that we've never done before. This is a perfect example. In all of my time, I didn't know you guys, and over the past 6 months or so, our orbits have intersected, and we're looking at what our collective interests are in a way that it's not about just what the National Council is doing, or it's like, hey, what are we collectively looking to do, and how do each of us begin to play a role such that we bring our expertise to benefit young people on their behalf. So that's part of what I see, much more engagement from a collaborative perspective. But the other thing that I really see that I think is hugely important is really looking from an outcomes perspective and getting clear about what those outcomes are in a way that then we all can be aligned around those specific outcomes, program design, engagement, reflection, evaluation. Again, you talk about those metrics. We in this sector have to be like others in other sectors where there's actually research that supports our theories. We just can't say sports is XYZ and have it be anecdotal. Those days are gone. And so I think that's what I see. And I see the opportunity for for kids to have fun, to get the benefit of play, They don't even realize that they're getting benefit. They're just having fun. But we as adults who are supporting them, help them get those outcomes. And the last thing that I'll just say about what I see about it is also a notion of young people coming back and having voice and having agency in this arena. There was a time, I might be a little bit older than both of you guys. I know that I am. There was a time that, we went into the neighborhood, into the park with our friends, organized the games, made them fair, found the equipment, adapted the rules where necessary, didn't have any adults doing any of that stuff. And it's important, I think, for young people to have agency and control and voice and choice in how they engage. And I think that is one of the pieces that you'll also begin to see as we move forward.
Wow, Wayne, thank you. Embarrassingly, I'm part of that generation where we had to fabricate our own equipment in fields and make our own rules. So don't feel that you're too far ahead of us in that game. So, but yeah, outstanding perspective. Appreciate that positive, bullish approach. And not just that, but you gave us some really good nuggets today with clarity. And cannot thank you enough again for being one of those servant leaders with your organization, the National Council of Youth Sports, to really share your vision with those teachers and coaches and community rec leaders and parents and all those people that are involved in the youth sports space. Can't thank you enough.
Hey, thank you. And thank you for two things. So first of all, thank you for having me today, giving me an opportunity to talk about something that I'm passionate about, share with you all where we are as we embark on this new vision for the National Council of Youth Sports. But also I want to thank you all for, again, as I said, being the OGs, for being in this space and, being a beacon, being individuals that have been really championing an idea, again, whose time has come. So thank you all for what you all have done on behalf of young people across the country.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Yep. Cool. All right, well, I guess that will conclude our session for today. Really appreciate everybody listening in, and please provide any feedback you have to us at any time. And Wayne, once again, thank you so much for all you do and for being with us here today. And take care, everybody. Thanks so much.
All right, we'll see you all.
Thank you, Wayne.